long before the rise of ancient Greece, before the first kings built their cities beside the sea, and before humanity gave names to the stars above them, there was another world, a quieter world, but also a far more dangerous one. The mountains were untouched. The oceans stretched endlessly through darkness, and the sky itself belonged to beings so ancient that even the gods would one day fear them. The Greeks called them the Titans, and among all of them, one ruled the cosmos with absolute power: Cronus. According to Greek mythology, the universe did not begin with the Olympian gods. Zeus did not always rule the heavens. Before the age of lightning, marble temples, and heroic legends, there existed older powers born from the earliest parts of creation itself. The Titans were not simply rulers in the way humans would later understand kings. They were connected to the structure of the world itself: the sky, the sea, the earth, time, darkness. Everything felt larger during their age, older, less human. And Cronus stood at the center of it all. But what made his story so tragic was this: he had once been the young rebel himself. Before Cronus ruled the cosmos, the heavens were controlled by his father Uranus, the primordial sky god. Uranus feared the strength of his own children and imprisoned many of them deep within the earth, hiding them away in darkness where they could never threaten his authority. Over time, resentment grew among the Titans like pressure building beneath stone, and eventually Cronus became the one willing to rise against his father. Ancient Greek storytellers described this moment almost like the changing of the universe itself. Cronus overthrew Uranus, and with that single act, the balance of power shifted across creation. Suddenly, the young Titan who had once feared oppression became ruler of the cosmos itself. For a while, his reign was remembered as peaceful compared to what would come later. The Greeks would later call it a golden age. Humanity, in these myths, lived closer to nature then. The world had not yet become filled with endless wars, ambition, and collapsing kingdoms. Rivers moved quietly through untouched valleys. The stars shone above an earth still young and mysterious. But even during this age of calmness, fear had already entered Cronus's heart, because he learned of a prophecy, a whisper of the future that followed him constantly. One day, one of his own children would overthrow him, just as he had overthrown Uranus before him. The prophecy changed him, slowly at first, quietly. But fear has a strange way of reshaping even the most powerful rulers. Cronus became obsessed with preventing the future he had seen waiting for him. And so, each time his wife Rhea gave birth, Cronus swallowed the child, one after another. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon. The future gods disappeared into darkness before they could even speak their first words. Rhea watched this happen again and again, unable to stop it. Imagine the silence that must have filled the halls of the Titans afterward. A silence not of peace, but of grief. Because despite all his power, Cronus had become trapped by the very thing he feared most: destiny. Yet in Greek mythology, destiny cannot simply be swallowed and hidden away forever. And when Rhea gave birth to her final child, she made a decision that would alter the universe itself. Far from Cronus's throne, hidden deep within the island caves of Crete, she concealed the infant child and wrapped a stone in blankets instead. Cronus swallowed the stone without realizing the deception. And somewhere beneath the sound of distant waves and mountain winds, the child, who would one day challenge the Titans, survived in silence. His name was Zeus, and although the world did not yet understand it, the age of the Titans had already begun to fall apart. When Zeus was hidden away on the island of Crete, the world still belonged to the Titans. Cronus continued ruling the cosmos from his vast throne, believing the prophecy had been defeated at last. The skies still answered to Titan power. The oceans remained ancient and untamed, and across the earth the age of older gods continued in heavy silence. But far from the throne of Cronus, a different future was quietly growing. According to Greek mythology, Zeus spent his childhood hidden deep within the mountains and caves of Crete, protected from his father's sight. Ancient storytellers imagined these places as remote and wild, filled with forests, cliffs, and winds moving endlessly through stone valleys beside the sea. There, Zeus was raised in secrecy. Some myths say divine beings guarded him. Others tell stories of magical creatures protecting the infant god, while warriors clashed their shields together to hide the sound of his cries from Cronus. And honestly, that image says a lot about Greek mythology itself. Even destiny in these stories arrives quietly at first, not through explosions or dramatic declarations, but through hidden moments, small choices, silence growing beneath the surface of power. As Zeus grew older, so did the feeling that the balance of the cosmos was slowly shifting. He was not raised as an ordinary child. From the beginning, he carried the weight of prophecy around him like an invisible shadow. The Greeks often described Zeus not simply as strong, but as watchful, patient. Unlike Cronus, whose fear consumed him more each year, Zeus learned to wait, to observe, to understand the world he would eventually challenge. Meanwhile, Cronus remained trapped inside his own paranoia, and fear has a strange effect on rulers. The more power they gain, the more terrified they become of losing it. The Titan king, who had once overthrown Uranus to free himself from oppression, had slowly become exactly what he once hated. That cycle is one of the most important themes in Greek mythology. Power repeating itself. Parents fearing their children. Children rising against their parents. One age replacing another. The myths almost treat history itself like an endless wave moving forward through time. And somewhere during those silent years on Crete, Zeus began preparing for the moment when the prophecy would finally awaken. By now, the world of the Titans had grown old, ancient, heavy. The universe itself almost felt as though it was waiting for change. And eventually, Zeus returned from hiding, not as a child anymore, but as a god ready to challenge the ruler of the cosmos. The storm had not arrived yet, but for the first time in countless years, Cronus was no longer the only power shaping the future of the heavens. As Zeus reached adulthood, the world of the Titans stood at the edge of a transformation it could no longer avoid. For ages, Cronus had ruled through fear and absolute control. The cosmos obeyed the Titans. The heavens remained silent beneath their authority, and no force had yet risen powerful enough to truly challenge them. But the prophecy had survived, quietly, patiently. And now Zeus began moving toward the destiny that had followed him since birth. Greek mythology often presents these moments in a strangely human way, not as instant battles between unstoppable gods, but as emotional turning points shaped by fear, family, betrayal, and ambition. Because at the center of this cosmic conflict was not merely a war for power. It was a son preparing to confront his own father. And somewhere deep within the ancient halls of the Titans, the fear Cronus had carried for so long was slowly becoming reality. Zeus understood something important very early. He could not overthrow the Titans alone. Cronus still controlled the cosmos. The Titans remained enormously powerful, and the balance of the world had belonged to them for ages beyond memory. So Zeus began gathering allies. According to the myths, one of his first actions was freeing the siblings Cronus had swallowed long ago: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon. The future Olympian gods emerged back into the world after ages trapped inside darkness. Imagine that moment for a second. A universe that had remained frozen beneath Titan rule suddenly beginning to breathe again. The old order cracking open from within, and for the first time, Cronus was no longer facing destiny alone. Now the younger gods stood together. The Olympians. And unlike the Titans, they represented something new: movement, change, a younger world waiting to emerge. But even with the Olympians united, the coming conflict would not be simple. The Titans were ancient beings tied directly to the structure of creation itself. The mountains, oceans, and skies almost seemed connected to their existence. To fight them meant shaking the foundations of the universe. And this is where Greek mythology becomes incredibly cinematic, because the stories describe the beginning of the Titanomachy, the great war between the Titans and the Olympians, not as a normal battle, but as a cosmic catastrophe. The earth trembled, storms covered the heavens, mountains split apart beneath unimaginable force. Lightning moved across the sky like the universe itself had become unstable, and standing at the center of it all was Zeus, no longer hidden, no longer a child surviving in silence. Now he stood openly against Cronus, ruler of the Titans and lord of the old world. The age of peace beneath Titan rule had ended forever, and the war of the gods had finally begun. The Titanomachy did not last for a single day. According to Greek mythology, the war between the Titans and the Olympians continued for years, an endless struggle that seemed to shake every part of existence itself. And honestly, that idea makes the story feel strangely exhausting in a very human way. Not glorious all the time, not endlessly heroic, just heavy. Imagine a world where the sky never fully clears, where thunder rolls constantly across the heavens, where mountains split apart beneath forces too large for mortal minds to even understand. That was the world the myths described during the War of the Gods. On one side stood the Titans, ancient rulers tied to the oldest parts of creation. Cronus remained at their center. Even now, despite everything, he was still powerful beyond imagination. The Greeks never described him as weak. Fearful, yes. Paranoid, absolutely. But weak? Never. That's what makes the conflict so compelling. Cronus wasn't simply an evil figure waiting to lose. He was a ruler desperately trying to hold together an age that was already slipping away from him. And maybe deep down, he knew it. Meanwhile, Zeus and the Olympians represented something entirely different. A younger generation of gods, more emotional, more unpredictable, closer in personality to humanity itself. The old world of the Titans had always felt distant and cosmic, almost too ancient to understand, but the Olympians felt alive. They argued, desired power, made mistakes, felt jealousy, pride, love, and anger. That difference mattered because the Titanomachy wasn't only about strength. It was about the universe changing from one kind of order into another. And during the war, Zeus slowly proved himself not just as a warrior, but as a leader. He united forces that once seemed impossible to gather together. Some myths say he even descended into the depths of Tartarus to free the Cyclopes and the hundred-handed ones, ancient beings imprisoned long before the war began. The Cyclopes, grateful for their freedom, forged divine weapons for the Olympians. For Zeus, they created the thunderbolt. And from that moment onward, lightning became more than a weapon. It became a symbol, a sign that the heavens themselves were beginning to answer to a new ruler. The battles grew more violent after that. Lightning storms consumed the skies, while oceans crashed against shattered cliffs beneath the chaos of divine warfare. The myths describe entire landscapes collapsing under the force of the conflict, and somewhere within that destruction stood Cronus and Zeus, father and son, locked in a struggle that felt older than humanity itself. One fighting to preserve the old world, the other fighting to create a new one. And slowly, almost inevitably, the balance of the cosmos began shifting toward Zeus. The age of the Titans was weakening. The age of Olympus was beginning. As the war continued, the universe itself seemed to grow tired of the conflict. The skies had burned with lightning for years. The oceans had crashed endlessly against broken shores, and the ancient world of the Titans no longer felt eternal the way it once had. That's one of the most interesting things about Greek mythology. Even the gods are not truly permanent. The myths constantly remind us that every age eventually gives way to another. And during the final years of the Titanomachy, that feeling became impossible to ignore. The Titans were still powerful, still terrifying, but they were no longer unstoppable. Zeus had changed the balance of the cosmos. The Olympians fought with growing confidence, and their victories slowly pushed the Titans further back across the shattered landscape of the ancient world. Cronus, meanwhile, was beginning to face the same truth that Uranus had once faced before him. The future cannot be held back forever. No matter how tightly power tries to close its hands around the world, time eventually moves forward anyway. And honestly, there's something strangely sad about Cronus during this part of the story, because in many ways he became trapped inside the very cycle he once tried to escape. He overthrew his father, fearing oppression, only to become a ruler consumed by fear himself. The prophecy that terrified him ended up shaping every decision he made, and in trying so desperately to avoid losing power, he slowly guaranteed his own downfall. Greek mythology loves these kinds of tragic patterns. The gods are powerful, but they are never free from destiny. Eventually, the final battles of the Titanomachy arrived. The myths describe storms so violent that the heavens themselves seem to split apart. Lightning struck endlessly across mountains, while oceans rose beneath the chaos. The hundred-handed ones hurled enormous boulders across the battlefield, shaking the foundations of creation itself. And at the center of the storm stood Zeus, no longer hidden, no longer preparing, now fully transformed into the ruler the prophecy had promised. The final defeat of the Titans did not come quietly. It came with the collapse of an entire age. Cronus and many of the defeated Titans were cast down into Tartarus, the deep abyss beneath the world, sealed behind enormous gates far below the earth itself. And suddenly, after ages of war and fear, silence returned to the cosmos. The storms faded, the skies cleared, and for the first time the rule of the Olympian gods truly began. Zeus ascended as ruler of the heavens. Poseidon took dominion over the seas. Hades descended into the underworld, and the ancient universe of Greek mythology entered a completely new era. The age of the Titans was over, but their memory never disappeared, because even after victory, the Olympian gods would carry the same flaws that once destroyed the rulers before them. Fear, pride, ambition. The cycle had not ended. It had only begun again under different names. After the fall of the Titans, the universe entered a strange kind of calm. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence that follows something enormous finally ending. The storms faded slowly from the heavens. The oceans settled, and across the ancient world, the rule of the Olympian gods began to take shape. Zeus now stood where Cronus once had, ruler of the skies, lord of thunder and lightning, king of Olympus. And honestly, that's where Greek mythology becomes incredibly fascinating. Because even after defeating the Titans, the Olympians did not create a perfect world. Far from it. The Greeks never imagined their gods as flawless beings. The Olympians argued constantly. They became jealous, proud, emotional. They fell in love, held grudges, punished mortals unfairly, protected favorites, started conflicts over pride and revenge. In many ways, they felt more human than divine. And maybe that's why these myths survive for so long. Because beneath all the cosmic battles and impossible creatures, the stories were really about power, fear, family, ambition, and change. Things humans understand deeply. Zeus himself became one of the most powerful figures in all mythology, but his rule was never peaceful for long. New threats always emerged. Monsters from ancient ages, prophecies about future children, conflicts between gods and mortals. It's almost as though Greek mythology is constantly reminding us of something. No victory lasts forever. Even after the Titanomachy ended, the world remained unstable. Because the universe itself was alive in these myths, always moving, always changing. And somewhere beneath Olympus, deep within Tartarus, the defeated Titans still existed in darkness. That detail always adds a strange feeling to the story. The old world never fully disappears. It waits beneath the surface, buried, but remembered. Meanwhile, humanity slowly entered the myths more directly. Cities rose beside the sea. Temples were built beneath mountain skies. Sailors prayed to Poseidon before crossing dangerous waters. Farmers looked toward Demeter for good harvests. Warriors asked Athena or Ares for strength before battle. The gods became part of everyday life, and over time, the stories of Olympus spread across the Greek world through poets, travelers, and storytellers sitting beside fires beneath the night sky. But among all those stories, one memory always remained larger than the others. The war that changed the cosmos itself. The moment Zeus rose against Cronus. The moment the old universe collapsed, and a new age began beneath the throne of Olympus. And even thousands of years later, people still remember the sound of thunder as the symbol of that victory. As the age of Olympus continued, The Olympian gods became deeply woven into the imagination of the ancient Greek world. To the people who told these stories, the gods were never distant ideas living somewhere beyond reality. They were present in storms, in the sea, in war, in harvests, in love, in fear. Every part of life seemed connected to them somehow. And that's what makes Greek mythology feel strangely alive, even now. The myths were not simply stories about powerful beings. They were attempts to explain why the world felt unpredictable, why storms appeared suddenly over calm oceans, why kingdoms rose and collapsed, why humans suffered, loved, feared, and hoped. Zeus, as ruler of Olympus, stood above this constantly shifting world. But even after becoming king of the gods, he could never fully escape the same tension that once consumed Cronus: the fear of losing control. Greek mythology repeats this idea constantly across generations. Power always creates anxiety, and the stronger a ruler becomes, the more fragile the future begins to feel. Some myths even describe Zeus hearing prophecies about children who might one day become more powerful than himself. And for a moment, the cycle almost threatens to begin again. That's one of the deeper themes hidden beneath these ancient stories. The gods may rule the cosmos, but even they cannot fully control destiny. Time continues moving forward, no matter who sits on the throne of heaven. Meanwhile, below Olympus, humanity continued building civilizations beneath the watch of the gods. Sailors crossed dangerous waters carrying small offerings for Poseidon. Families lit fires for Hestia inside their homes. Cities raised enormous temples in honor of Athena, Apollo, Hera, and Zeus himself. The myths spread from island to island, carried through songs, theater performances, poetry, and quiet conversations beneath torchlight. And over centuries, these stories became part of the cultural memory of the Mediterranean world itself. But even as Olympus ruled the heavens, the shadow of the Titans never completely disappeared. Deep beneath the earth, Tartarus still held the defeated rulers of the older age. Ancient beings trapped beneath darkness and stone. And honestly, there's something haunting about that image. The old world buried beneath the new one, waiting, remembered, never fully gone. Maybe that's why the story of Zeus and Cronus still feels powerful today, because it isn't only about gods fighting in the sky, it's about generations replacing one another, about fear creating the very future it tries to prevent, about time moving forward no matter how desperately anyone tries to stop it. And in the end, even the mightiest rulers of mythology become part of the past eventually. The thunder fades, the storms pass, but the stories remain. And eventually, like all ancient stories, the age of Olympus slowly drifted into legend. The temples remained standing for centuries beneath the Mediterranean sun. Marble columns overlooked the sea while priests carried offerings through quiet sanctuaries filled with incense and torchlight. People continued speaking the names of the gods for generations: Zeus, Poseidon, Athena, Apollo, Hades. Their stories echoed across theaters, marketplaces, islands, and distant ports where sailors carried myths from one coastline to another. And honestly, maybe that's the most remarkable part of Greek mythology. Not the battles, not even the gods themselves, but the fact that these stories survived. Thousands of years passed. Empires rose and disappeared. Languages changed. Kingdoms collapsed into dust. And still, people continued telling the story of Zeus and Cronus, the story of a son overthrowing his father, the story of an old world collapsing so a new one could begin. Because beneath all the lightning and cosmic wars, the myths reflected something deeply human. Every generation eventually replaces the one before it. Every age believes its power will last forever. And every civilization, no matter how strong it becomes, eventually gives way to something new. The Greeks understood that in a strangely beautiful way. Their gods were immortal, but their ages were not. The Titans ruled for a time. Then the Olympians rose, and even Olympus itself eventually became part of the distant past as the ancient world transformed again and again. But the myths endured because they were never only about divine beings. They were about fear, ambition, family, jealousy, destiny, change. Things humanity continues to understand no matter how much the world evolves. And perhaps that is why thunder still feels powerful when it rolls across the sky at night. Somewhere deep in the imagination of human history, part of us still remembers Zeus standing above the heavens with lightning in his hands. Part of us still remembers Cronus, fearing the future he could never escape. The ancient Greeks may be gone. Their temples may stand in ruins beneath open skies, but their stories still move quietly through the world, surviving long after the empires and civilizations that first created them. And now, as the storms over Olympus finally fade into silence, the story comes to rest. And now, after the wars of the gods, the fall of the Titans, and the storms above Olympus, let the ancient world grow quieter for a while. Let the thunder fade into the distance, and let the mind slow down beneath the calm skies of ancient Greece. Imagine the Mediterranean world thousands of years ago. The sun has already begun disappearing behind distant hills, painting the sea in soft shades of gold and deep blue. Along the coastline, small Greek cities rest quietly beside the water. White stone buildings glow beneath the final light of evening, while narrow streets slowly empty as night approaches. Fishing boats drift gently in calm harbors. Olive trees move softly in the warm wind, and somewhere in the distance waves roll endlessly against ancient shores that have watched civilizations rise and fall for centuries. High above the cities, temples stand silently on rocky hills. Their marble columns catch the fading sunlight, while torches begin flickering beside worn stone steps. The world feels slower here, older. There are no engines, no electric lights, no noise beyond the sounds of nature, distant conversations, and the sea itself breathing against the coastline. In the marketplaces below, the final merchants close their stalls for the night. Clay pottery rests quietly beneath linen covers, while the scent of olive oil, herbs, and sea air drifts gently through the streets. Somewhere nearby, a philosopher continues speaking softly beneath a shaded courtyard, while students listen beside flickering lanterns. Further uphill, families gather inside homes built from warm stone and wood. Oil lamps glow gently against the walls, while evening meals are shared in calm conversation. And above it all, the stars slowly begin appearing over Greece. The same stars ancient sailors once followed across dark waters. The same constellations poets and storytellers look toward while speaking about gods, heroes, and distant worlds beyond the horizon. The air grows cooler now. The sea breeze moves softly through olive groves and marble pathways, while the sound of cicadas slowly fills the warm night. Somewhere far away, a temple bell echoes faintly across the hills, and for a moment, the ancient world feels completely at rest. No wars, no prophecies, no storms from Olympus, just the quiet atmosphere of ancient Greece beneath the stars. A world slowly drifting into sleep beside the endless Mediterranean Sea. The night deepens slowly over ancient Greece. The last traces of sunlight disappear behind the distant horizon, and the Mediterranean becomes darker and calmer beneath the growing sky of stars. Along the harbors, small wooden boats move gently with the rhythm of the water, tied carefully beside stone docks, worn smooth by countless years of footsteps and sea wind. Most of the city has fallen quiet now. The busy sounds of the marketplace are gone. The voices of merchants have faded into silence. Only occasional footsteps echo softly through narrow stone streets lit by scattered oil lamps. From higher ground, the temples continue watching over the sleeping city. Their marble pillars glow faintly beneath moonlight, standing motionless against the dark hills like guardians from another age. And honestly, there's something deeply peaceful about imagining the ancient world at night. History often feels loud when we study it. Wars, kings, empires collapsing. But most people who lived in ancient Greece probably experienced life in quieter ways. Preparing meals, listening to the sea, walking home beneath torchlight after long days beneath the sun. Somewhere inside a small courtyard house, a family sits together, finishing their evening meal while olive oil lamps flicker gently against white stone walls. Nearby, an old storyteller speaks softly to a group of children about heroes from long ago. Perhaps he tells stories of Odysseus crossing dark seas beneath Poseidon's storms, or of Achilles standing before the gates of Troy beneath the burning sky. Outside the city, the countryside rests beneath silver moonlight. Olive groves stretch quietly across rolling hills, while distant sheep bells echo faintly through the cool air. And above everything, the stars remain impossibly clear. Without modern lights, the night sky feels enormous here. Ancient astronomers once studied these same stars carefully, trying to understand the order of the universe through slow observation and patient thought. To them, the heavens were not empty. They were alive with meaning. Every constellation carried stories. Every movement across the sky felt connected to destiny or time itself. Meanwhile, the sea continues its endless rhythm against the coastline. Waves rise and fall softly against stone harbors, while warm wind drifts through cypress trees and temple courtyards. And little by little, the ancient Greek world grows quieter still. The torches burn lower. The streets empty completely. The temples stand silently beneath the stars. And somewhere, beneath the calm night sky of the Mediterranean, the ancient world slowly falls asleep. Far beyond the sleeping cities and quiet temples, the Mediterranean continues stretching endlessly into the darkness. Ancient sailors once believed these waters connected every corner of the known world. Egypt to the south, Phoenicia to the east, Italy far beyond the western horizon. But tonight, the sea feels calm and almost timeless. Moonlight reflects softly across the surface of the water, while gentle waves move against rocky shores that have existed long before the first Greek cities were ever built. High in the hills above the coastline, small paths wind through olive groves and cypress trees. The air here is cooler now. You can almost imagine the scent of sea salt mixing with dry earth and distant wood smoke drifting upward from homes below. Somewhere far away, a dog barks briefly in the night before silence returns again. And honestly, this is probably the side of history we think about the least. Not the battles, not the rulers, just the ordinary quietness of ancient life, the moments between major events. A fisherman preparing his nets before sunrise. A traveler resting beside a roadside fire after days of walking. A philosopher sitting alone beneath the stars, listening to the sound of wind moving through stone columns. Ancient Greece was filled with these quiet moments, and in many ways they are what made the world feel alive, because even while myths about gods and heroes spread across the Mediterranean, ordinary people still woke each morning to simple routines. They baked bread, gathered water, worked in vineyards and olive fields beneath the warm sun. Children ran through narrow streets, while elders sat beneath shaded courtyards, telling stories from memory rather than books. At night, families often gathered outside their homes, where the air was cooler, speaking softly beneath lantern light, while constellations slowly crossed the sky overhead, and the stars truly mattered to them. Without modern cities drowning the heavens in artificial light, the night sky must have felt endless, almost overwhelming. The Milky Way stretching clearly across the darkness like a river of light above the ancient world. Perhaps somewhere along the coast tonight, a young sailor looks upward, wondering what exists beyond the horizon. Perhaps a poet sits awake beside a dim oil lamp, writing thoughts about love, destiny, or the gods. Or perhaps most of the world simply sleeps peacefully beneath the soft sound of waves moving through the Mediterranean night. The temples remain silent now, the marketplaces empty, even the sea breeze has slowed, and little by little, ancient Greece drifts deeper into stillness beneath the stars. As the night grows later, the ancient world feels softer somehow. The sharp heat of the day has disappeared completely now, leaving only cool air drifting slowly through marble streets and quiet courtyards. In Athens, the Acropolis rises silently above the sleeping city, its temples glowing faintly beneath silver moonlight. The Parthenon stands high against the dark sky, calm and motionless, watching over generations that come and go beneath it. And below those ancient stones, life continues quietly in small and ordinary ways. A final lantern burns beside a doorway. A distant conversation fades behind wooden shutters. Somewhere, footsteps move slowly across stone roads before disappearing into silence again. Most people are asleep now. Fishermen resting before dawn. Merchants preparing for tomorrow's markets. Travelers sleeping beneath simple blankets in roadside inns beside the sea. And beyond the cities, the countryside rests beneath endless constellations. Fields of olive trees stretch across dark hills like shadows frozen beneath the moon. The wind moves gently through them, soft enough to barely disturb the silence. If you listen carefully, you can almost imagine hearing the ancient world breathing, not through machines or crowded streets, but through water, wind, firelight, and distant waves. History often makes ancient Greece feel larger than life, a place of philosophers, heroes, and gods. But nights like this remind us that it was also simply a world where ordinary people lived quietly beneath the same stars we still see today. Somebody somewhere is still awake, though. Perhaps a scholar sits beside an oil lamp studying geometry or poetry, while melted wax gathers slowly along the table. Perhaps a sailor stares across the harbor toward the open sea, thinking about tomorrow's journey. Or maybe an old storyteller quietly repeats myths that have already survived hundreds of years by nothing more than memory and spoken words. Stories of Zeus, Athena, Odysseus, the Trojan War. Stories carried from one generation to the next beneath skies just like this one. And as the hours pass, even those voices begin to disappear into the night. The Mediterranean remains calm. The temples stand silent. The stars continue moving slowly overhead. And ancient Greece, wrapped in moonlight and sea wind, drifts peacefully toward the quietest hours before dawn. Now the night has reached its deepest and quietest hour, the kind of silence that only exists long after midnight, when even the restless parts of the world finally seem to slow down. Ancient Greece rests beneath the stars, almost completely undisturbed. The streets are empty now. Oil lamps burn low beside temple walls and narrow alleyways, their soft golden light flickering gently against worn marble and stone. From somewhere near the harbor, the sound of water softly touching wooden docks moves through the darkness in slow and endless rhythm. Everything feels calmer here, simpler. Even time itself seems slower in this ancient world. Far above the sleeping cities, the constellations continue their silent movement across the heavens. The same stars watched by philosophers, sailors, poets, and travelers thousands of years ago. Ancient people often believed the sky carried meaning beyond human understanding, that somewhere among the stars lived the stories of gods and heroes, forever drifting above the earth. And honestly, beneath a sky like this, it becomes easy to understand why they believed it. Without noise or distraction, the universe feels enormous. The mountains surrounding the cities fade into soft shadows beneath moonlight, while cool air moves through olive trees and quiet hillsides. In the distance, a small fire still burns outside a countryside home where a shepherd rests beside sleeping animals before morning arrives. Near the coast, fishing nets hang, drying beside silent boats waiting for dawn. The sea continues breathing slowly against the shore, always moving, always returning. And somewhere inside the quiet temples of Greece, statues of forgotten gods stand motionless in the darkness, while incense smoke rises gently into the night air. The ancient world feels very far away now, and yet strangely close at the same time, because beneath all the history, myths, and ruins, these were still human lives, people searching for meaning, for safety, for peace beside the sea beneath the stars. Perhaps that is why ancient Greece still feels comforting to imagine at night, not because it was perfect, but because its world moved with a slower rhythm, a world of firelight instead of electric light, of waves instead of engines, of stories spoken softly beneath open skies. And now, as the final hours before sunrise approach, the Mediterranean remains calm. The temples remain silent. The stars continue watching quietly overhead. And the ancient Greek world sleeps peacefully beneath the endless night sky. And now, as the cool winds of the Mediterranean slowly fade into the distance, let us travel somewhere even older, far beyond the mountains of Greece, beyond the islands and marble temples, to the lands where some of the world's first civilizations once rose beside ancient rivers. Mesopotamia. Before we begin, slowly, just allow yourself to relax. You're about to travel back in time, not as a history lesson, but as a quiet experience. A journey into the ancient lands of Mesopotamia, the cradle of early civilization, where rivers shaped cities and cities shaped history. Imagine yourself standing in this ancient world. The air is warm, the ground is dry and timeless, and everything feels distant yet present. There's no rush here, no urgency, only the slow rhythm of history unfolding. As you begin to walk, you are not just observing the past, you are moving through it. The sound of distant rivers, the soft wind over stone paths, the quiet life of ancient cities, all begin to surround you. As you begin to walk, you are not just observing the past, you are moving through it. The sound of distant rivers, the soft wind over stone paths, the quiet life of ancient cities, all begin to surround you. And with every step you take, your thoughts begin to slow, your breath becomes softer, your body becomes lighter. You are safe here. You are calm here. And now, as we move deeper into this ancient world, we begin our journey through Mesopotamia. And slowly, very gently, you may begin to drift.
Not away from the story, but into it. Let the ancient world guide you. And as we continue, you may find yourself slowly falling asleep while walking through history.
The night is calm, not completely silent, but soft. The kind of quiet that feels alive, as if the world itself is slowly breathing. You are walking slowly, without effort. The ground beneath your feet is warm stone, still holding the memory of the sun. Each step is steady and quiet, blending into the rhythm of the night. Above you, the sky stretches wide and endless, filled with distant stars. In the distance, you begin to see a city, ancient, vast, and resting peacefully in the night. Babylon. It doesn't call to you, yet you move toward it. The road feels calm, and time itself seems to slow with every step. A gentle breeze passes by, warm and soft, carrying the scent of earth and water. You take a slow breath and begin to relax even more. The night continues, and you are still walking. As you come closer, tall walls rise before you, softened by moonlight. Torches flicker gently, casting a warm and steady glow. You step inside, and the air changes, cooler, softer, more calm. Somewhere nearby, you hear water flowing, a quiet and steady sound that draws you forward. You follow it slowly through silent streets. Everything feels distant, peaceful, and unhurried. And then rising before you in soft layers, you see the hanging gardens. Water flows gently from one level to another. Leaves move softly in the night air. You take a step forward, then another. The world becomes even quieter as you enter. The garden breathes slowly, and the night continues. You move deeper into the gardens, and the world becomes even quieter. Not empty, but softer, as if every sound has been gently lowered. The air is cool here, comfortable. It touches your skin like a calm breath. Water is everywhere now. Not loud, not rushing, just flowing, steady, endless. You follow a narrow stone path between the terraces. Above you, layers of green rise into the night sky. Below you, water moves slowly through carved channels. Each drop of water falls gently from one level to another. Soft, rhythmic, like the garden itself is breathing in silence. You slow down without even noticing, your steps becoming lighter, quieter. The sound of water surrounds you now, not overwhelming, but complete, filling every space between the stones, between the leaves, between your thoughts. Somewhere nearby, a small stream flows under stone arches, hidden, protected, constant. You pause for a moment and simply listen. There is no need to move quickly here, no need to reach anywhere. The garden does not ask anything from you. It only exists and invites you to exist with it. Leaves shift softly above your head, a gentle movement, almost invisible, like the night is breathing through them. Water continues to flow, layer after layer, stone after stone, time after time. And you realize something simple. You're no longer just walking through the garden. You are part of its silence now. Everything slows even more, thoughts fading gently into the background, leaving only the sound of water and calm. The hanging gardens feel endless here, not because they are large, but because they are still. And in that stillness, you begin to relax even deeper. The night continues quietly around you, and you continue with it. You stay in the quiet of the gardens. Time here feels softer now, almost as if it no longer moves forward in a straight line, but flows gently like water. The sound of the streams never changes, always steady, always calm. You begin to walk again, but slower than before, as if even movement has become optional. Stone steps lead you slightly higher into the terraces, each step warm from the memory of the day. Above you, hanging vines sway almost invisibly in the night air, soft shadows moving across stone walls. You notice how the water is guided through small carved channels, each one carefully shaped, each one letting water pass without resistance. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is simply continuous. Somewhere deeper in the garden, water falls from a higher level, a soft, distant sound like a whisper repeating itself through stone. You follow that sound without thinking, not because you must, but because it feels natural. The air becomes even cooler as you move upward, and more still. Every breath feels easier now, deeper, slower. You pass beneath an arch covered in plants, leaves gently brushing the stone above your head. For a moment you stop again, just standing there, listening. Nothing calls you forward, nothing pulls you back. There is only this moment, this quiet space between water and night. And in that space, everything feels balanced, soft, complete. The garden breathes slowly around you, and you breathe with it. The night continues, and you continue gently within it. You move even deeper into the upper terraces. The higher you go, the quieter everything becomes. Not because sound disappears, but because it no longer feels separate from you. Water still flows beside you, but now it sounds distant, like a memory of movement rather than movement itself. The stone here is older, smoother, shaped by time and constant water. You place your hand gently against it as you walk. It feels cool, still, grounded. Above, the garden opens slightly, revealing more of the night sky. Stars scattered like quiet thoughts across darkness. The air is lighter here, almost weightless, as if the garden is slowly releasing you from everything unnecessary. A soft breeze moves through the leaves, barely noticeable, yet it changes nothing and everything at the same time. You pause again, longer this time. There is no direction now, no path that feels more important than another. Only stillness, only breath. Somewhere far below, water continues its endless cycle through stone channels. But here, at this height, it feels like a distant heartbeat. Steady, calm. You begin to realize the garden is not something you are moving through anymore. It is something you are resting inside. The distinction between you and the garden begins to soften, like the edges of a dream gently fading. Everything becomes simpler, quieter, lighter. And in that simplicity, there is rest. The night holds you gently, and you no longer feel the need to go anywhere else. You remain in that quiet place. The upper terraces of the garden are now still around you, not empty, but complete in their silence. Even the sound of water feels distant here, like it belongs to another layer of the world. You stand between stone and sky, between movement and stillness. And for a moment, nothing changes. The night feels suspended, as if time itself has slowed down enough to be barely noticeable. A soft wind passes through the garden, touching leaves, then disappearing, without direction, without urgency. You breathe in slowly and hold nothing in return. The air feels clean, light, calming in a way that asks nothing from you. Below, the city of Babylon rests quietly. Its distant presence no longer feels separate, just part of the same calm world you are in. You take a small step forward, then stop again, not because you have arrived somewhere, but because there is nowhere else to reach.
The hanging gardens are no longer something you observe. They are something you are surrounded by, something you exist within. Stone, water, leaves, night, all blending into a single quiet rhythm. Even your thoughts begin to slow, fading gently into the background, one by one.
Until there is almost nothing left to think, only feeling, only stillness. The garden does not change, and it does not need to, because it is already enough, exactly as it is. And you are enough here too, without movement, without effort, just present, just resting, just part of the quiet night. You stay there a little longer without needing to move. The hanging gardens are completely still around you now, not silent in absence, but silent in fullness. Every sound that remains feels distant and softened. Water, wind, leaves, all blending into one gentle presence. You notice how even your awareness feels lighter, less focused, less sharp, as if the garden is slowly carrying your thoughts away from you, one by one. There is no need to hold on to anything anymore, no need to follow anything. Just this moment, this quiet space, this still night. The stone beneath you feels steady and warm from the day that has passed. The air above you feels endless and calm. And between them, you simply exist. Far below, Babylon continues its quiet life, but it no longer feels distant, only connected, like part of the same breath. You take another slow breath and release it without effort. Nothing changes, and yet everything feels softer. The garden does not guide you anymore. It simply holds you. And in that holding, there is comfort, there is calm, there is rest. You no longer feel the need to continue walking because the journey... And now, even that sense of movement begins to fade. Not suddenly, but gently, like a final layer of awareness slowly dissolving into the night. The hanging gardens remain around you, but they no longer feel like a place you are in. They feel like a feeling, soft, endless, calm. The sound of water continues somewhere far away, but it no longer pulls your attention. It simply exists, like a distant memory of peace. You are no longer searching, no longer observing. There is only stillness now. The air feels heavier in a comforting way, as if it is gently holding you in place, not restricting, just supporting. Your thoughts slow even further, each one fading before it can fully form, until there is almost nothing left to follow. Only awareness,
soft and quiet. The garden, the city, the world beyond it, all begin to feel distant, not gone, just far away. And what remains is this moment, this calm.
And as you drift even deeper into stillness, the boundaries between sound and silence begin to fade completely. The hanging gardens are no longer something you can clearly sense, not because they are gone, but because they are no longer separate from you. Everything becomes softer, quieter, slower. Even the idea of movement feels distant now, like something that belongs to another time. There is only calm, only presence, only the gentle rhythm of stillness that holds everything together. You do not need to understand anything anymore. You do not need to follow anything. All that remains is this quiet sense of being, light, soft, endless. The sound of water, the breath of wind, the memory of stone and garden, all of it fades into a single quiet feeling, peace. And as you drift even deeper into stillness, the boundaries between sound and silence begin to fade completely. The hanging gardens are no longer something you can clearly sense, not because they are gone, but because they are no longer separate from you. Everything becomes softer, quieter, slower. Even the idea of movement feels distant now, like something that belongs to another time. There is only calm, only presence, only the gentle rhythm of stillness that holds everything together. You do not need to understand anything anymore. You do not need to follow anything. All that remains is this quiet sense of being, light, soft, endless. The sound of water, the breath of wind, the memory of stone and garden, all of it fades into a single quiet feeling, peace. And now there is nothing left to follow. No path, no sound, no direction. Only a deep and quiet stillness that surrounds everything equally. The hanging gardens are no longer a place in your mind, not even a memory. Just a soft presence, blending into the calm of the night. Even time feels distant now, as if it has slowed down enough to disappear completely. There is no movement forward and no return. Only the feeling of being held gently by something vast and peaceful. You are not thinking anymore, not searching, not observing, just resting. The air feels weightless. The silence feels complete. And in that completeness, everything softens even more. Thoughts dissolve before they form. feelings dissolve before they rise, until only calm remains. A calm that does not change, a calm that does not move, a calm that simply is. You are not separate from it anymore. You are part of it. And as the night continues without end, you continue with it, gently, quietly, and completely at rest. And now even the thought of continuing begins to fade, not as something lost, but as something that is no longer needed. Everything has already softened into stillness. There is no direction left to follow, no distance left to cross. Only this quiet, endless calm. It does not grow, it does not shrink. It simply remains, like the gentle space between thoughts, like the pause between breaths. You are no longer holding on to anything, not even awareness itself. Just resting deeply, quietly, without effort. The world feels far away now, not gone, just unimportant in this moment of peace. And yet, nothing is missing. Everything feels complete. The stillness does not ask anything from you. It does not guide you. It does not shape you. It simply holds you gently, without resistance. And in that holding, you begin to let go even more. Not into sleep, not into wakefulness, but into something softer than both. A place where nothing needs to continue, and nothing needs to end. Only calm remains, and you remain with it, fully at ease, fully still, and completely at rest. And now, there is nothing more to continue. No story left to follow, no place left to reach. Only this final stillness, soft, complete, and endless. The garden, the city, the night, all of it gently fades away, not disappearing suddenly, but slowly, like a distant dream losing its shape. What remains is calm, pure, quiet calm. You do not need to think anymore. You do not need to follow anything. There is only rest, deeper than thought, softer than silence. And as this moment settles completely, even the feeling of time begins to dissolve. There is no before, no after, only now, stretching endlessly, without effort, without change. You are safe here, completely at ease. Nothing is required of you anymore. And so you simply rest, gently, quietly, fully at peace. And the night continues, without end, as you drift deeper into calm. And now even that final sense of continuation begins to soften. There is nothing left to hold on to, nothing left to follow. Only a deep and quiet presence that fills everything equally. The idea of distance fades. The idea of movement fades. Even the feeling of you becomes lighter, softer, almost weightless. Everything is still here, and yet nothing needs to be noticed anymore. The world does not end. It simply becomes quiet. Like a long breath slowly settling into silence. There is no effort in this place, no direction, no urgency, only calm. A calm that does not ask for attention, a calm that does not change. You are not moving toward anything now. You are simply resting within what already is. Soft, still, endless. And as this quiet continues, even that awareness begins to gently fade into peace, until there is nothing left to do and nothing left to become. Only rest, only stillness, and you remain there, completely calm, completely quiet, and gently at sleep. Long before great empires ruled